successful life.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you about leadership. I've got some questions that I really thought through to just get the best essence of what I think you can share with people watching and listening to this. So when it comes to leadership, do you think anyone can be a leader? And if so, what does it take? And what are some of the biggest ideas behind being a great leader?
So yes, I believe everyone can be a leader because you have a choice when you walk out in the world every day. You can either be a victim or you can be a leader. And that's really what I've spent the past 15 years on, and the Leader Who Had No Title is all about that, which is you can lead without a title. The world says you need to be a prime minister, a president, a billionaire, an MBA, a CEO, and then you're a leader. Right. And that is just such a myth that causes people to betray the leader that lies within them. And so leadership is less about a title, less about the size of your office, less about how much money you have. It's much more a way of thinking, a way of being. And like I say, it's just the opposite of being a victim. So anyone can walk out in the world regardless of what they do or where they live and start thinking, feeling, and behaving like a leader. And you can see a victim a mile away. It's like you can hear it in their words. I went to the dentist 3 days ago, and there was someone in the office, and there's no judgment, but just by his words, it was like, oh, I tried to do this, but I couldn't. I can't do this. Oh, the weather's bad, whatever. And I've been at this so long. He was suggesting his beliefs, because your words reveal your beliefs.
Right.
And so the victim is all about I can't, and it's because of this, and they give away their power. Someone once said the number one way we give away our power is thinking we don't have any. And so the leader is very different. The leader is all about I can, the language of possibility. I mean, words are so incredibly powerful. And so that's the opportunity everyone on the planet has today, which is to stop giving away their power, stop blaming the world around you, and as Gandhi said, walk out in the world and be the change you want to see in the world. And that's just what being a leader is all about.
Okay, so for stepping up, for people to step up, one of the things that I've observed with just so many people over the years, if people really are a victim, if something really bad happened to them, if they were robbed, if they were raped, if they were molested, if they were, embezzled from, if they were hurt, if they were oppressed, I mean, there's all kinds of things. If someone genuinely was a victim, and then as they develop themselves to either be defined by it or take whatever their past is and use it as a raw ingredient to hopefully learn lessons and build further, there's a certain level of conditioning where someone gets into the mode of being a complainer or being a victim. What do you suggest to people? Because I think people become blind to hearing it. Like they can hear what you're saying and say, okay, yeah, I kind of get that. And they have all this subconscious conditioning that they wake up every day and they bitch and they complain.
Yep.
What do you suggest someone in that mode does? I mean, how do you flip that switch? I mean, that's what I love about your 5 a.m. club. It's conditioning. I mean, it's rituals, it's things that you do, and those things develop you. But if someone is watching this or listening to this going, but Robin, you don't really understand my life, because they're still in that place where they can't hear it, what would you say to them?
Well, there's so much in your question. And the first thing I would say is, look, I was in Johannesburg a little while ago, and I went through the airport. And I went into the men's room or washroom or bathroom, however you want to call it. And so I walked in to the men's room, and the first thing I hear is, welcome to my office. And this was the janitor at the Johannesburg men's room.
That's funny.
Who janitorized, or I'll make up a word, cleaned the toilets like Mozart composed music. Now that man has no money. That man probably has very little education. That man is judged by the world as having an unimportant job.
Right.
And that man is a hero, could be a hero to millions of people. Why? Because he actually saw himself as an ambassador to South Africa. And his passion was palpable. And his visceral commitment to doing work at the highest level was like you don't see even from the CEOs. Right. And all I'm saying is, even the person with the broken heart, the person who's down on their knees, whether they see it or not, they have a choice to rise above their circumstances. And leadership and humanity is a testament to the people who have done it. I mean, you read you look at Mandela, 27 years in imprisonment. When his son died, he wasn't allowed to attend the funeral of his own son. He said that was one of the great pains of his life. And what did he do? The victim looks at something like that, torture, and says, I am broken. And they give up, and they close their heart, they close their mind, they close their creativity, and they blame the rest of their life on what happened to them. But Mandela, what he chose to do was to use it as an opportunity, because actually the things that break your heart, if you choose, can open your heart. Fear, the world says fear is bad. Fear is only an opportunity for bravery training. And what he did was he used those 27 years of torture to open himself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to the point where when he was released and became the president of South Africa, he invited his jailers to sit in the front row at his inauguration. And he was asked why, and he said, because if I don't, I'd still be in prison. Sure. And that's a long way of saying, but we do make excuses because we are very good at self-deception. Because if we actually had to face the responsibility of playing with our bigness in the world, we'd have to let go of our addiction to our excuses and leave what's safe. Am I making sense?
No, totally. No, you're totally making sense.
You'd have to leave what's safe. I mean, we are addicted to crisis sometimes. It makes no sense. We are addicted to pain. And we'd have to actually leave the pain to go out to the possibility of pleasure and joy and greatness. And believe it or not, that frightens us.
Right.
So we make these excuses, and then we blame people. Oh, Joe or Robin, I don't like the way he looks. He speaks differently. But subconsciously, as you're suggesting, those are just our protective mechanisms to avoid owning the responsibility of our brilliance.
Right. Well, and you talk a lot about power and really even being aware of that you have power. And some people, I mean, even the quote you said earlier, which you have in The Leader Has No Title, you also have what you just said reminded me of the Martin Luther King quote you have in Leader Has No Title about being the best street sweeper.
Sure.
Yeah. So the thing with the whole victim mentality, because I guess the confession I would make is I spent a ton of my life bitching and complaining about stuff that, whatever. It was an excuse for doing anything about it. But in my mind, I convinced myself, well, I didn't have any power. And the problem is, when you're in a state where you're like an adult and you actually can do something, there are children that maybe they can't run away, maybe they can't fight back, maybe they can't ask for help, and they're truly in bad situations. When you become an adult and you can develop critical thinking, if you stay in the victim role, even if it's true, even if you believe I'm really a victim and you can show this, the problem is you get no power out of it. Because in that mode, you don't really do much. And so what is power? How would you define power and accessing it?
Well, I think there's two types of power. I think there's external power, which is what most people chase because the world has sold them a bill of goods.
Yeah, I'm referring more like to the personal power.
Okay, so what is that? It's your essence. I mean, it's truly boundless energy, perfect health, maximum creativity, an unbeatable mindset, and then science is proving all of it, like Angela Lee Duckworth's research on grit, Spencer's work on stereotype lift. It just goes on and on. But what's power? It's your ability to take the genius you were born into and unleash it on the world, so that you, on your deathbed, say, I lived my glory. And so that the world is better because you've been here. And then people might be saying, well, that sounds like motivation, which I don't teach motivation. Let's go to the science. The science is actually saying, you look at the work of Anders Ericsson, the preeminent researcher in the field of exceptional performance, and a lot of authors have borrowed his research, the 10,000-hour rule, et cetera.
Yeah.
But if you actually look, he has found and studied, people like Mozart and Beckham and the great athletes, humanitarians, entrepreneurs, chess champions were less about genetics and natural talent. And what makes icons in whatever field of you choose is not your talent. It's things like the amount that you practice, your ability to stay with your practice for the 10,000 hours, your social circle. I mean, what made the great Brazilian footballers great was not that they have some natural thing by living in Brazil. It's every little kid from pretty much the moment he's 3 or 4 years old, right, sees the heroes, and it's the ticket out of poverty. And so all they do is touch the football every single day and night. And by the time they're 11 years old. They've touched the football millions of times, and they are therefore untouchable compared to anyone else around the world. And all I'm saying is genius is not something you're born with. Genius is something that you apply. You don't get lucky, you make lucky. Success is not something that is, divinely bestowed on you. Success, whether it's prosperity or whatever it is something that you earn by grit, hard work, finding the right people, doing the learning, etc.
So yeah, like our friend Dan Sullivan says, he says what a lot of people think of as genius is simply redundancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just doing things. It's great.